Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome back to another episode of Rewired to Inspire. This show where we'll dive into self-love, learn tangible ways to rewire the brain, and discovering your soul's purpose. The goal of Rewired to Inspire is to encourage listeners to begin doing the hard work, to get curious and open to maximizing your life. Our mindset shapes how we live. Depending on life events, traumas, and personal experiences, our mindsets are all vastly different. However, one thing we all have in common is the ability to rewire our mind, to change the narrative, and to pivot our lives. I hope you leave each episode with the belief that you are so worthy to live a life true to you. I look forward to chatting with you every single Tuesday and Thursday and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's episode. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to my podcast, Rewire to Inspire. I am your host, Jessie Brown, and I am so excited to be jumping on the mic with you all for episode number 74 of Rewire to Inspire. I just hope you guys are all doing well, and just take a second right now to just check in with yourself before we dive in. I really want to get more intentional on giving that permission throughout my podcast, because I know what it's like to just go through the motions of a day, and we end up getting to the end of the day and we're like, oh, I haven't really checked in with myself at all. I wonder how I am doing. And we go and do all these amazing things, and we're trying to accomplish so much. And especially right now, with the holidays coming up, we get so busy and so stressed and so overwhelmed. And so, I just want to encourage you to remind yourself what the holidays are all about. It's not about feeling stressed and spending all this money and feeling like you want to rip your hair out because you're trying to just accomplish everything and make everything look perfect. I encourage you to find the permission this year to just enjoy life and to just slow down and remember what the holidays are about, which is family and doing what you love and spending time with those you love. Maybe it's eating good food. Maybe, it's doing something different. Maybe have specific family traditions, but just taking a second to just slow down for a minute, because it's often in those times of feeling super overwhelmed and just super out of place that we can burn ourselves out and really forget all the joy that really does surround us. So I just wanted to give that permission for a second to check in. And so even in saying that, that really ties into today's episode. And today we're going to talk about why hard truths are so crucial. And even just me saying that can be a hard truth for you of, oh, maybe I am burning myself out. Maybe I am, got the pedal to the metal and trying to just get everything done, when we're all just humans and we can only do so much in the run of a day. But I'm really, really passionate about today's topic because hard truths are something that I think we have a really, really icky relationship with a lot of the times. And it's not about, going and telling people all these hard truths that are going to hurt their feelings, but more so about how without having hard truths, we really avoid getting new awareness. And that new awareness is often what gives us that permission and those tools to push ourselves a little further in the right direction. And so without further ado, let's dive into number 74, why hard truths are so crucial. And so I want you to think for a second, have you ever been out and about or just, at a friend's house or even at home, wherever, and let's say you go to the bathroom and we all check ourselves out for a second when we look in the mirror and you notice you have something in your teeth. Oftentimes when this happens, we'll go back to whoever we're with and we'll say, why didn't you tell me there's something in my teeth? Like, why did you let me walk around with that in my mouth looking so silly? And we instantly, push that onto the other person. And oftentimes what happens is that person either A, didn't notice that you had something in your teeth in the first place, or they didn't want to give you the hard truth and maybe lead to you feeling embarrassed or you feeling a certain type of way. And so we avoid giving people pain that might actually be the pain that they need to hear so that they don't feel pain from somebody else or in a different regard. And so I know that that's a silly example, but the goal of today's episode is to share why both giving and receiving hard truths is an important part of life and something that we really need to begin to have a better relationship with, because when it's coming from a good place and from good intentions, those hard truths can really better our life. But if we just get so used to, tiptoeing around and making sure everybody's okay all the time, we have to ask ourselves, am I not giving someone a hard truth because they can't handle it? Or is it because we can't handle what we might think their reaction might be? So AKA in that situation, what if that person's super mad at me for telling them that they have something in their teeth? What if they're super embarrassed and they lash out at me? So we just avoid giving them that pain, giving them that truth, because we feel like, it's going to come back on us in some way, shape, or form. And so another example of this is, have you ever asked someone, do you think that I've maybe gained a little weight? Like, do you think that I've, gained weight? Like, what do you think? And that's a hard question to, first of all, ask, but oftentimes the person will answer, oh my God, no, like, you look great. You're doing great. Yet, internally the truth, and you feel like you have, and you feel icky, and you were kind of hoping that that person would tell you what you don't want to hear, but what you need to hear. But when they don't, we almost get resentful. And that specific question is kind of a trick question. This can really come into play in different arenas. So even, for example, today I was saying to my partner, or he said, you're doing a really, really good job with your podcast. And I said, thank you, but I feel like I can be doing better. And he said, no, like, you're doing great. Like, you're doing 2 episodes a week and you're crushing it. And I said, yes, but I feel like I can be doing better. And so for me in that moment, I really felt an injustice, because I felt like, compared to my potential, I'm not seeking that. And in that moment, I was kind of needing that hard truth of, yeah, you are doing really great and like, good job. But yeah, maybe you could be doing a little bit more in your time. And so we can see how hard truths are often sometimes something that we need to form a good relationship with. And we have to be ready, quote unquote, if we're going to ask those questions, to hear the right answer. Because if we're just asking that question, like that weight one specifically, we often ask that question for validation of like, oh no, we're good. And then we have the permission to stay the way we are and often end up gaining more weight. But if someone were to say, I think maybe you could be a little more disciplined, and I think that might make you feel really, really good if you were to, be a little bit more consistent in showing up at moving your body. And you can see how our delivery of giving hard truths is really what matters in those instances, right? If we deliver a hard truth to someone who's not ready to hear it, or is in denial about that thing, it might cause them to shut down, or actually amplify that behavior that we're giving them the hard truth about in the first place. And we see this all the time with like active addiction, saying, I feel like you're drinking too much, for someone who's in denial. It's like, yeah, that's a truth, but that could be super, super overwhelming for somebody who has a lot of shame and denial built up around that thing. So we really have to be careful and create necessity to deliver these hard truths to people in our lives. But my goal of today was to come on here and share that, yes, hard truths are super, super uncomfortable, and they're hard and they're challenging, but they're a vital part of life, because we will bounce around these things to make everyone around us just feel comfortable, but we don't grow and evolve when we feel comfortable. And it's often through that pain, although it can be uncomfortable and hurtful, if it's coming from someone who cares about us and in the right approach and in the right way, that gives us the permission to make those shifts. But if we're just telling someone, hey, you've gained quite a bit of weight, you might want to do something about that, that person's relationship with getting that pain might be to shut down and maybe binge eat. And so it's actually creating a bigger barrier than what you were hoping for in the first place. So our approach and how we deliver hard truths is so, so important. And so the first thing that we need to realize is to be aware of who we're seeking deep truths from and who we're giving them to. And so, for example, if I was to ask somebody who's not a podcaster for advice, and they told me something super, super inaccurate and hurtful, I might stop podcasting. I won't, but I could, right? Because it's hurtful. But if I ask someone who's strides ahead of me in podcasting, and I asked them for a hard truth about my show, and they were to give me something or a piece of advice, I'll likely hold on to that a little bit heavier and, take that with the permission to get better, versus somebody telling me, your subjects suck. I might be like, oh, like, okay. But if somebody who's ahead of me says, This little thing might help. Tweaking your volume adjustment by a couple percentages might be helpful. It's like, it's still hard truths to hear any kind of negative, but it's how we deliver them, who we ask them from, and what we do with those truths. Because if somebody gives us a truth and we just do nothing with it and it just sits there was really no point of us asking for it in the first place. But we also have to realize that sometimes people will project onto us and they will give us hard truths that we really it has nothing to do with us. So if someone were to give me negative feedback about my podcast, that's not a podcaster. And that's kind of my point of this, is we have to really ask ourselves, do I feel like this is the person that I should be taking advice from? So this is when it can get messy, because not everybody's hard truths are actually impactful. And in retrospect, they can actually cause us to revert in the complete opposite direction. So we really have to be careful of who we're seeking deep truth from, and the severity in which we carry the weight of if somebody tells us an uncomfortable hard truth of maybe something that we didn't even ask for in the first place. So number one, I want you to pay attention to who you're giving hard truths to and who you're receiving them from. Number two is I want you to understand that if you're asking for the truth, you can't get upset at that person for telling you what you don't want to hear. So let's say, for example, you go to your fitness coach and you say, do you think that I'm working out as hard as I could be? And their answer is, I think you're doing a great job, but I do think that you can be significantly more disciplined. Anytime we hear a truth that we don't want to hear, our initial response is often to lash out, to get angry, to shut down, or it's to get better. So we have to begin to ask ourselves, what is our relationship with that uncomfortability? What is our relationship with that pain? And I'm going to be doing an episode soon on our relationship to our trauma response, to pain, to just uncomfortable situations. When someone tells us something or gives us feedback, what is your initial response? Because when my coach tells me, Jesse, I think you need to be a little more disciplined in saving your money and not spending so much. Of course, that sucks to hear, because a part of me is embarrassed. But another part of me is like, okay, he's ahead of me and he's right. So I can either listen to him and get better, or I can get resentful, push him away, and end up being in the same or a worse financial situation. So we have to begin to, realize that if we're asking for hard truths and really asking for them, we also have to have equal responsibility of how we react and how we respond, because it's also not easy to be on the other side of that. If somebody were to ask me for a hard truth, it's really uncomfortable to give that to somebody, because we're scared of hurting people's feelings. We're scared of making people feel upset. We're scared of hurting other people. But what if by not giving those hard truths, we're actually hurting them more? So again, back to the weight thing or eating healthy, if someone says something and you didn't say anything about, I think maybe you could be eating a little bit healthier. Although that's hurtful to say, it's also more hurtful for them to continue eating like garbage and gaining weight than it is to help them along their journey and to help them understand that I'm only telling you this because I love and care about you, not because I want to hurt you. So our approach is so important. But we have to, again, we can't get upset at somebody when they're trying their best to give us awareness and a truth that we asked to receive in the first place. And so if you're going to ask, you have to be willing and open to receive their answer. But again, pay attention to who you are asking that hard truth from. Number 3 is ignoring/never having hard truth conversations really serves no purpose. We have to get, better at getting uncomfortable and giving each other hard truths, because if we just ignore those hard conversations and we just never have them and we're just okay with everybody around us, witnessing them hurt themselves, witnessing them going down a rabbit hole, witnessing them doing a disservice to themselves, and we never intervene and say, hey, I've noticed this is happening. It's maybe none of my business and you know what's best for you, but this is just what I'm noticing. I'm wondering if you're open to hearing what I think about this. And so when we just avoid those conversations, really nobody benefits from that, because if none of us ever got hard truths or hard awareness, we wouldn't learn. So even think of when we're growing up. Let's say, for example, we touch a hot stove. We just got a super hard truth that that means hot. We will get burned. And if nobody told us that and we just went and did it, we would end up hurting ourselves. But how often do we do this in everyday life where we're waiting till we have massive pain to shift what we're doing? Whereas oftentimes somebody along your journey has probably told you something was going to happen, but we just ignore it, right? We see this all the time, or I seen this all the time when I was in high school. My mom would tell me a hard truth and I would just ignore her because, like, what does my mom know? Which is so inaccurate. But at the time, we just have so much ego and just so many blinders on that we don't see. And so we just end up making the mistake and learning from it. But imagine if we listen to our parents who were ahead of us and have learned from that, and we respect what they're telling us and proceed forward with caution. And so we can see how without ever educating on hard truths and things that might suck, we're really just doing a disservice and it doesn't benefit any of us. And I'm realizing more and more lately just how vital hard truths are. They allow us to stop what we're doing and to pivot, to make better decisions, and think how much time and energy and effort we save by honoring hard truths and pivoting than continuing down a road that is either going to hurt us, is going to fail, isn't going to work, whatever. Think of how much we can get better. And that's why I'm so passionate about getting a coach or seeking somebody who's ahead of you in something, because you can learn through their mistakes instead of making them over and over again. And yes, we learn from our mistakes and failing forward is so important. But if we can get resourceful and learn from somebody who's already made those mistakes, we're able to save ourselves so much grit and pain. And so again, honoring who you're asking that permission from, but knowing that we really do need those hard truths to grow. And the thing is we must ask ourselves, am I lying to them to protect me or to protect them? Because if you truly cared about somebody or a situation, you'd be willing to be honest. And again, an example of how it can be helpful to frame it is, this might not be what you want to hear, but I think it's maybe what you need to hear. Are you open to me sharing? And that allows that other person the permission to decide if they want to hear what you have to say or if they don't. Because if somebody isn't even open to receiving what we have to say, it's likely that whatever we tell them is just going to go one ear out the other. And so we really have to lay down that foundation of trust that I'm sharing this with you because I care about you, not because I'm trying to tear you down, because a lot of people out there will try to give you hard truths that really have nothing to do with you and is likely just a projection and a reflection of themselves. And I'm realizing more and more that we care more about keeping the peace than allowing someone a safe space to be uncomfortable and to grow. And it's only holding us back. And I remember this a lot when I was working with clients one-on-one. I would have to give them hard truths a lot, especially if somebody's in a toxic cycle all the time or in an abusive relationship. And it's not about me saying advice of, hey, I think you need to get out of that relationship because X, Y, and Z, but more so framing in a way of, hey, I'm noticing that oftentimes when you're around that person, you often feel really crummy. I'm wondering what you think of that. And it allows that person to contemplate for themselves the outcome, because we're so quick to want to fix everybody else's situations and to take the pain away and to just say, hey, that person's treating you like crap, you need to get out of that relationship. And it depends on the context of the situation and what your relationship is with that person. For me as a counselor, there's no way, shape, or form or part of me that would ever tell somebody that, because that is such an ungentle, hurtful approach to take, because maybe that person really cares about that person even though they're abusive, right? And so it's about allowing that person to see it for themselves, but maybe giving them just a little new awareness, taking off the blinders just a little bit so they can see what maybe they haven't seen before. But we have to be willing to give them that safe space to feel uncomfortable and to grow. And so the truth is that the truth can be hard sometimes, right? It's not always what we want to hear, or we wouldn't even be having this conversation in the first place. But it also gives us new awareness to better our lives, right? To shift and to pivot how we're showing up and how we're living. Without hard truths and pain, I wouldn't have been able to make shifts in my life and now be living a more aligned and fulfilled life. If I didn't have my mom tell me certain people weren't really the best for me from her awareness, I wouldn't have gotten out of those relationships. If I didn't give myself the hard truth that I wasn't happy in certain careers, I wouldn't now be in a job that I love. If I didn't give myself the hard truth that I had been gaining weight and not taking care of myself, I wouldn't have begun to take action to begin to show up differently, to eat better, and to nourish my body. And so it's also important that we give hard truths to ourselves. We like to protect ourselves and be comfortable, but it's through those hard conversations with ourselves that we're able to grow and evolve and to step into that higher, better version of ourselves. And yes, that often comes through pain and going through hard experiences. But I don't know about you, but I would rather go through hard, uncomfortable experiences at certain points in my life than to live my whole life unhappy and feeling like there's just something wrong with me and that I'm never content. And so I truly, truly hope that today's episode encouraged you to ask yourself to start within. What are those conversations you're having with yourself? Are you letting yourself off the hook too easy? Do you need to hold yourself more accountable? Do you need to give yourself hard truths first? Are there people around you that you care about, that you've noticed things that maybe you want to have a conversation with them, but you've just been avoiding it? Do you think that there's a way that you can frame those conversations to let that person know that you love and care about them and you're noticing something and that's why you want to tell them? I think that if we all got a little bit better at this, we would be able to be a lot gentler in our approach, but we would also be able to carry out those hard conversations that really help us grow more than by not having them. So I truly, truly hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast episode. It is one that I am also working on for myself, of delivering hard truths, but also accepting them for myself, because the thing about this is it is uncomfortable. It does take time. It does take emotions that are going to come up that feel super, super uncomfortable. But I promise you, you guys, it is through those uncomfortable emotions and feelings that we grow and that we evolve. And so the more that we can get comfortable doing that and doing it often, the better and better we'll get at it. And honestly, that is the right path to be on. So I truly, truly hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Again, reminder to take some time for yourself, check in with yourself, your beautiful, beautiful being. How are you? Checking in, maybe giving yourself a little hug and doing something for yourself. I truly, truly hope you guys enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next week. Happy November. All the love, you guys. Until next time. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. I absolutely love connecting with you all, so make sure you're following me on Instagram. I am at JessieBrown13. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave a review or share with someone you think would enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next episode. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.